everybody. Welcome to the first ever Dr. Jen and Linsly podcast. We are so excited to join you today.
Yes, and we are so happy you're with us. This is a conversation that is it's energizing, and the time is now, and there is such a great wealth and breadth of information that we can now bring to people.
So we wanted to spend this time with you just to introduce ourselves, why we're here, why we are compelled to do this in a space that there's a lot of other people doing the podcasting, and just give you our backgrounds and get to know us a little bit.
Yeah, so let me open with a question to you. Why did you decide to get energized and kind of invest in this idea of midlife and what's going on?
I think for one, it's really personal. This is the stage of life I'm in, and just trying to figure out for myself what works best, because what used to work doesn't seem to be working anymore. I know what I want to be doing 10 years from now, 20 years from now, maybe even 30 years from now. And how do I make sure that happens? I think life comes at you fast. All of a sudden I have 2 teenagers, recently lost my mom. I don't want to age the way I've seen people around me age. And so it just became really top of mind. And then all of the women I work with, everyone's going through this, and people are lost, and they are just really asking for help that is relatable, that is digestible, that is trusted. And so I think we both have had a lot of asks in our communities and our networks to say, will you guys share this with a broader audience? So that's really what we're here to do. And we'll get into more of our backgrounds a little bit, but I would love to ask you the same question.
Well, I think what's fun about it is, I come at this question from the same sort of, I'm in this moment of life. I've gone full throttle. I've had kids, and there's just a moment where you pause and your body starts to do things differently than it used to do. What worked before doesn't work now. And at that kind of kicked off a big research project that I went through to understand the mindset of midlife, how to power up a positive mindset, as well as the physiology of midlife, so that whatever you envisioned, your body was able to help you do. And then as you and I started to have these conversations in the work we do with women here in Park City, it was so powerful because you're a doctor. I know we're going to go through your background, but you're not just a doctor, you're a kick-ass doctor who also is a kick-ass athlete and has lived a very high impact, super engaged life, and was wrestling with these same questions. I'm coming at it from a business background, a startup entrepreneur. Have also lived in full throttle for the first 15, 20 years of my career, and then tried to figure out how do you reinterpret that in this moment in time. And so the two of us in the conversations we were having with our community, it was just so uplifting. Just the horizon is potentially very long in front of us. And so the idea that you and I could share these ideas with a community of women that would help, say, imagine you had the energy that you had when you were 20, but you had the expertise and the wisdom that you have when you're 45, 50, 55. What a powerful horizon and canvas you could paint for yourselves if you had the energy and the health to do it.
Absolutely. So tell me more about your background, what you did, and what you are still doing to get to this space, and go into a little more detail for us about really the specific areas in this space that are so exciting to you right now.
Absolutely. My background was in the strategy business consulting world. And so that was a skill set about synthesizing a bunch of information and data and trying to look for the relevant patterns and trends, and then break it down in a way that made our client at the time feel like they could implement the ideas that came out of that data analysis. And so that skill set I took into a couple different consumer spaces. I worked in the arts and crafts space with consumers who were super fired up about that space, and then served up a business there, a startup there. I worked in the wine space, did the same thing in the kids media space. And all of those had this similar profile of tons of information. How do you simplify it? And then how do you ultimately let the end user, the person who's going to have to do the thing that's being described in the information set, pick and choose what fits their lifestyle, what they want to do, and what they actually can do. So that's kind of the mindset that I brought to this question of, how do you think about the psychology to have the energy to go paint that canvas for the back half of your life? And so the spot that I'm specifically really inspired by and energized by are around how to help get your mindset in the right place to see this opportunity and this horizon as a gift, as exciting, and not as overwhelming, which is sort of feels like in some of the conversations. And then how to play with the different physical realities of peri and postmenopause and the ideas and solutions that are just coming online with my own lifestyle, my own body, and then be able to say which of these are actually credible and doable and repeatable for people who are just normal humans walking through their day, trying to figure out what they can try to do each day to make sure the next 10, 15, 20 years are available to them.
Perfect.
But, I'm coming at it as a kind of consumer. I don't have the science background. I don't have any of the kind of the medical pedigree or ongoing curiosity and deep dive credentialing, which you do. So tell us a little more about that.
So yeah, this journey I feel like started a long time ago, and I didn't know I was on it for a long, long time. So grew up an athlete, as many of us did, and was really fortunate to play sports through college and was happy to play. Didn't think twice about that I just lifted a lighter version of what the guys were doing in the weight room. Didn't think twice that there was a soda machine outside of our locker room, and that was our rehydration after practice.
Is that crazy? I forgot to mention I worked at Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
That was a different time.
Yeah.
Decades ago. Right?
Didn't think twice about we trained in the leftover gear from the football players. We were just happy to be there. And I really was, I really was just happy to play, happy to be there. Then I kind of knew for a long time since I was young, I wanted to be a doctor, and that was the path I was going to be on. I decided after college to get a master's in exercise physiology because I did love being an athlete and I really wanted to understand more about the science of what that meant.
Yep.
And actually, strangely enough, I would have never thought at the time, ended up doing my master's thesis on bone density and depression in postmenopausal women and the kind of correlation there. And so now I feel
like cutting edge,
right? Like life is coming full circle, even though that was, 20 plus years ago now. And then went on to medical school, classically trained as a pediatric anesthesiologist, spent most of my clinical time at Stanford. We relocated to Utah for kind of family reasons to just take a deep breath, raise our kids in a different part of the country and in the ski town and let them have access to different opportunities. And then in 2021, because of my clinical situation was changing and I wasn't ready to give up some of the lifestyle opportunities that I had acquired when we moved here, I said, I'm going to take a break. And so I was really fortunate to join a human performance team that dove into a lot of the issues that we are going to cover from a little bit of a different lens.
Yep. And
what that opportunity gave me was access to just very different groups of women performing at the highest levels, from the military to the boardroom to back into medicine, into sport, and to see that they all were asking for things that just weren't being delivered to them. Mm-hmm. And in different phases of life, some were young, starting families, some are our age, going through changes associated with menopause and work and family. And then others were older, saying, I don't want to be considered old. I want to keep going. These are the things I want to do. What's right for me? And I felt like there was a really lack of consolidated, concise information being delivered to them that really could impact them.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that you shared with me earlier on, we were working together, and first of all, I have to just have a giggle about that. Like, we worked out together for like 5 years at 6 a.m. with Whit at the Bow and did not know what we were both working on was like on this parallel track. But when we first started to talk about this, you were sharing with me that like, I don't know, some ridiculously small number, maybe single digit of the research that's being done on longevity and on all of the different health conditions and all the different pharma solutions and lifestyle levers is like 8% is done on women. And so
even less.
It's tiny.
It's very tiny.
It's mind blowing to me.
We had the great opportunity, and you got to join us to present at Congress last year. And we were looking at performance research, and that's a big word that covers a lot of areas, but 6% of that research is dedicated to women. So that's performance across the military, performance across, the business world, performance across sport, like 6%.
Right.
And, it's been in the last 20 years that women have been included in clinical trials in medicine, because we were too complicated.
Right.
But I think we should take a time out to maybe define some of what we're talking about.
That's a good point.
Bit.
That's a good point. Yep.
So we know that the world is big and people identify lots of different ways.
Right.
And we would like to be as inclusive as possible. We're going to use the word woman a lot because we're really focused on women right now. And we know that not everybody that identifies as a woman may have the same underlying physiology and biology. We're also going to use the word female sometimes, and female really referring to people that have female-based sex hormones and have that physiology and biology underneath. So, and a lot of this is because we have such little science. We're just beginning to understand how female sex hormones affect the entire human body. And so as we learn this, we're going to be able to take care of a wide amount of the population, regardless of how people identify. But the science right now is pretty limited to be able to expand.
Yep. As you were describing that too, what struck us when we were looking at this opportunity is like, okay, first of all, the physiology of being female, by definition, there's a lot of change, right? You know, go through puberty, menstruation, potentially childbirth, perimenopause, postmenopause. So that cohort of people walking around the earth right now, of humans, there's just so much in change happening in their bodies. To be able to speak about what is scientifically available now and what is realistic in terms of lifestyle levers is energizing. But then in parallel, people who identify as women in this gender and this culture that we're navigating, that also has a ton of change. You know, you go from potentially career, maybe you're a parent, then you're a caregiver, and people who identify as men also go through those changes. But to some degree, it feels like women, it's more amplified. There's a bigger variety of those changes going on. So that the cohort of females and women navigating midlife, wow. I mean, a lot to kind of unpack, which we're excited to do.
So excited. So we'd like to take you on this journey with us. I think, you know, we are going to talk about, and I love that we get to do this together, because I think having a clinician and a consumer, but at the end, we're both very similar in the fact that we are driven by data. We try almost all of these things ourselves.
We are laboratories.
We are our own personal laboratories.
Laboratories, yeah.
And
it's comical at times.
It is, and it's hard.
Yeah.
And you know, I think a lot of it goes against what we grew up thinking, and not in a negative way necessarily, but just in a challenging way. And the fact that, wow, I thought I was really on the right path, and now science is saying this to me. And I think welcome to the world of science,
right?
Which is the world of change,
right?
And what we know today may or may not be right tomorrow.
Yeah, that is a crucial part of this, because I mean, even in the course of the next 6 months when we're talking, hopefully new science will come out. We'll be learning things together. And that does not eradicate the curiosity and the importance of continuing to implement the science we now know and fit your lifestyle levers. And so we'll talk about that later. And, you know, what's the mindset for being able to roll with that kind of change. But science is by its nature discovering new things that we're going to be able to digest and run up against what we just talked about 6 months ago.
Yeah. So it is really our goal to help you build a toolkit to get through these different phases. And not only to get through, but to thrive through these different phases.
Yes, enjoy them.
To enjoy them.
Yes.
To celebrate them, which I think we forget to do often. I mean, we don't forget to do very often, but it's forgotten quite often. Also to introduce you to a lot of great people that are doing amazing work in this space that we are so fortunate to collaborate with, to get to know, and then to also just bring you stories of our friends and real people in our community who have, you know, taken on these challenges in their different arenas, what's worked, what hasn't, because we can all learn from each other and hopefully build this sense of community for all of you, that you're not alone through this, because I do feel like it's an isolating time of life for many of us.
Yes.
And it doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be.
Yes. I think there is a moment or a million when you wake up and you think, what am I going to do? You know, this is so challenging. My memory is a challenge right now. My physical fitness, my body comp is a challenge. My mood swings are, and you think it's just you. And the amazing opportunity we have right now, and that we've seen in the last few months, is that more and more are realizing it's not just you. It's a whole swath of women, either who are about to go through this or in the middle of it, have just come out of it. And it's a community where the conversation is exciting and is uplifting, because it's a super compelling horizon out there. And you just want to have some energy to participate.
Absolutely. So we hope you come back and join us. We are going to get started with just really diving into like, how do we get our mindset right to approach these opportunities, these challenges, and start to make these little changes. And I always love to quote you, and this is something you say almost every time we get the opportunity to work together. It's making these 1% changes, because I do think when you look at this on a whole, it's overwhelming.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. There's so much information out there. And I love how we could, some days we could spend all day following one protocol or another protocol or another protocol. And there's no time to live your life. And so our goal is to really make some of this digestible, tactical, implementable, all of those things
for each individual's lifestyle. There's not one formula. Not everybody has the same priorities, and there's no have tos. These are all ideas that are on offer, that are science-backed, data-driven, 90% of the time personally tried, one of the two of us. And so they're on offer for you to shortcut the solution set of how do you wake up with more energy? How do you get fired up to live longer? And then how do you continue to reinvent your purpose or redefine what it is you want to bring to the world and into your day-to-day?
Perfect. All right. We'll see you soon.